Hey everyone, my name is Maria Gomez and I'm going to be talking about cryptoterrorism and assessing the utility of blockchain technologies for terrorist enterprise, and my article is written by Christopher White. The main thesis of the article is about the rise of cryptocurrency and the significant potential upsides it brings for terrorist organizations. It is important to mention that currently there is insufficient evidence to show that it will have any significant changes on the current enterprise as is, but there is definitely room for a shift in the future, and this is partly due to the decentralization of the web that could lead for a significant shift for both terrorist and counter-terrorist organizations. Currently, cryptocurrency acts as a virtual currency with many layers of security and encryption within them. The most popular of these currencies is Bitcoin, which was developed in 2009. The original purpose for Bitcoin's development was to create a peer-to-peer or P2P file sharing system that solves issues that regular previous P2P networks had, which was mainly there being a lack of central authority to verify transactions. And essentially, the intrinsic value of the algorithmic hashing that was implemented to the new system was to address the concerns of needed authority for validation within the system. And this resulted in the system needing consent from both parties to complete a transaction, and therefore reduced the need for internal regulation and strengthening the system as it continued to grow. Today, there exists about thousands of other crypto coins, which are generally referred to as altcoins, and these altcoins usually take the same format as a Bitcoin, but they have small and subtle differences that make them stand out from the rest of the other altcoins around. And moving forward, it seems as though cryptocurrencies and the underlying cryptographic technologies used will play a significant role in either parts of the global economy or the entirety of the global economy. And overall, there is a broad set of advantage in the use of cryptocurrency over the alternative digital files that we have now, or the traditional fiat ones. And that comes from both underlying tech used in cryptocurrencies and the manner in which they behave in the financial market. And the most prominent of these advantages is that cryptocurrency transactions are fast, secure, and they are completely irreversible. Both transactions can travel around the globe in the speed of seconds, and the transactions usually tend to require the signature of the holder of the coin, which means that without their authorization, the transaction cannot happen, and there's really no feasible scenario where a transaction could happen without the holder authorizing it. And once it goes through, it's final, and it's completely irreversible unless a completely new transaction takes place. Another potential advantage is that there is usually no link between the coin and the real world identity of the individual. So someone could hold an considerable amount of coins, and they can be completely anonymous, and they could trade these coins completely anonymous as well, which we can see how this scenario could certainly benefit terrorist groups. Furthermore, these coins could be held in many different ways, the most versatile of which is the wallet, and this wallet could be online or on a physical hard drive that can be kept offline and on an individual. And because the value of the currency is derived from the underlying algorithmic design and the supply controlled by mining the currencies, it also makes regulating these coins extremely difficult for governing identities. And this, coupled with the difficulty of sometimes pinpointing the location of the physical wallets at any given point in time, makes cryptocurrency incredibly useful for people or organizations that are trying to keep out of the government views while completing these transactions. All of this has culminated to the point that companies in charge of these coins are beginning to use your P2P networks for other ventures, and they're beginning to branch out, primarily by offering a secure avenue for others to exercise capital transactions. And this becomes a key point in assessing the potential impact of the growing cryptographic technologies, because although these coins may not become successful legal tender, the tech that powers them will continue to be a driving force in the decentralization of the web and make them more useful for terrorist organizations. Moving on, the terrorism connection to all of this is the viability that a terrorist campaign is directly tied to its ability to maintain a successful criminal enterprise. And so much so that sometimes terrorist organizations forego their original political purpose to become more focused on a money generating side of their criminal activities. And the financial venture of these criminal enterprises have also included a reliance on a broad range of transactional mechanisms in order to ensure that the money that is coming in from these criminal activities is available to the organization as a whole whenever and wherever they need it the most. And some of these mechanisms include legitimate banking connections to launder money, to smuggle cash, a barter-like transfer system, which is the system of the hawalas. And in their system, the transfer of wealth, goods, or currencies is done entirely on a trust and honor system, rather than relying on transactional gatekeeping institution like a bank. And for years now, the internet has been a major point of interest for terrorists across the globe, but their use of it for financial activity has always been a mixed bag of success and failures, and they're still trying to find a way around government oversight without losing their opportunities. Because of this, over the years, the organizations have also become more sophisticated, preferring the dark web as a way to conduct their business. And the sophistication has also moved terrorist organizations toward the P2P encryption sharing files to be able to hide their communication as well. And the evolution of this is that terrorists have begun to not only use cryptocurrencies as a means of finance, but due to this reason, their security and control has also improved. Cryptocurrency also seems to hold a lot of value for terrorist organizations as a means of wealth and growth. And as it is now, cryptocurrency has its value directly tied to banked currencies. But because of this, cryptocurrency is incredibly volatile and prices can fluctuate as well. Any coin that is worth $800 today may plummet to half of its worth tomorrow to $400, or skyrocket and triple to what it was originally. That is where the value lies for these organizations, because this kind of fluctuation can be used in a stock form, and buying and selling can increase their revenue. And also, tying in the anonymity of these coins, the organizations could establish a really large mining operation in order to cultivate their own separate revenue source as well. Dozens of these coins have seen their overall value jump by several thousand% over the last few years. And although they do crash, they're really, really good at recovering. So that makes it a really, really good investment for anyone involved. And to kind of sum everything up, cryptocurrencies pose a good source of revenue because of their anonymity and the fact that there is usually nothing to tie to the individual, which tends to really benefit like secret dark web transactions and general transactions that want to be done without a trace. There's also a new system being developed now, which is called smart contracts, and that allows for transactions to only be executed if a certain criteria is met by both parties. And this style of transaction could replace the Hawala system that is currently in place with some terrorist groups, and many organizations sometimes rely on. And this can lead for increased cooperation between rival cells or other parties, which may not be completely trusting of each other, because now you have something other than the need of trust to create these contracts. The downside of using this form of currency, though, is for the organizations is the fact that since it is such an anonymously tied process, even with complete information of the wallets and the accounts, it is incredibly easy for agents of the organization to double dip into the money and launder the money off of the accounts with very little chance of being caught. And it also makes it kind of difficult to keep records in that sense of the wallets. Adding to all of this, the push for the decentralization of the internet is growing stronger as the years pass. And while most of the data transmitted nowadays needs kind of internet backbone operators, P2P transmissions do not necessarily need them to work in the same secure manner that they do already. And coupling all these things increases the ability of terrorist organizations to operate on the web as well. The decentralization will only make it harder than it already is to censor and track terrorist and extremist organizations on the internet. And if it does end up happening, it does fall on the scholars who are equipped with the knowledge to be watchful and aware of these situations to gain better access to the changing circumstances.